A delightful Wednesday morning to you and welcome to Waste Breakfast #What Are You Saying? The platform for the informed, the curious, and of course the passionate persons. Our conversation this morning is steered around the ifs or nots of childbirth delivery services in religious centers. This is where I ask you to join this conversation and other amazing discussions that we have here. You can tune in every Monday morning to Friday as we explore present discussions, public perspectives, and inspiring stories. Our social media platforms are showing on the screen, so you need to follow us to join this conversation. I am your one and only Okikiola Taiwo Jalopon, and I welcome you to the show this morning. I'm grateful and glad to be here alongside my precious women, God's Beauty and Oluchi. Good morning, girls.
Good morning, Oluchi.
So, guys, we want to play a
Okike.
game. And then this lady already said that. I already said I was going to tell you. This lady said that she was not going to play this game. So, if we should call her out after the show, yes, start calling her out right now. But before I start to ask how your day went, how your night was, I want to say a very, very big happy birthday to my father, the biggest fan for Waste Breakfast.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday, Papa!
Happy birthday to you, sir.
Love you, love you, love you,
love you so much.
This is going close to the 70th floor, so it's so amazing to have watched you grow as you have also, helped us to become who we are. I'm talking as siblings and I and everybody together. So thank you, Father. I love you so much. I hope and I pray that God continues to strengthen you from years to years to years to years so that I can see you when you're 200 years old. Happy birthday. So ladies,
happy birthday.
How are you? How's your night? Good. Did you have a dream last night?
No, I didn't.
Did you have a dream
Yes,
last
I
night?
had a very strange dream.
Okay, we don't want to hear about it.
I can actually tell you. But in this dream, I was working with a celebrity that I didn't think I would work with. But I had to gather people to go gift that person. And we were like packing boxes of like 200. I still don't understand what this dream means. Because if I tell you this celebrity, you'll be shocked that how did you and this celebrity be
It's not strange, it
work
means
together?
that you will soon be rich and I will be there side by side to chop your money.
Of course.
What about you? You said no dreams?
No dream.
Okay, no experience.
You actually did have a dream, but your brain makes you forget it every morning. Psychological fact.
So there was no dream at all.
There was actually a dream.
I literally
You
slept
can't sleep
well.
without dreaming.
At this point,
God, I beg.
I'm speechless.
God, I beg. This is how we always start our morning. And you've probably heard the shocking statistics about maternal and mortality rates in our country. Today, we're shining a spotlight on a specific concern, childbirth deliveries at religious centers. Gynecologists have raised alarms about the risk associated with giving birth in these settings, citing inadequate medical care, equipment, and trained personnel. But first, we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts on our social media handles, from Instagram to TikTok to YouTube to X and Facebook. Just share it with us. We want to hear from you. Should religious centers be allowed to handle childbirth deliveries, or should they be restricted to medical facilities? We'll go on a break right now, and when we return, we'll take you through the top stories across the globe. Please stay locked in. Great to have you back from that break. Now let us take a look at the news from the pages of today's newspaper. I would highlight the top stories from The Punch, The Guardian, and of course the New York Times. Starting off as usual with the New York Times. God's Beauty.
All right, straight into the New York Times newspaper. By the top left, we have the United States hostage freed and deal without Israel. And at the top right, we have China and United States set to lower tariff to ease tension. I love that news a lot, that headline. We'll talk about it later, but let's go straight into more of the headlines. And by the center, we have that Trump expects Saudis to pour cash into United States. And Trump crypto auction sales sells White House assets. That's also at the center. Then bottom center, we have the prosecutors portray Combs as a sexual predator. So let's quickly talk about this headline I think is interesting, which is China and United States set to lower tariffs to ease tension. So the United States and China have agreed to a significant reduction in tariff, marking a notable de-escalation in their ongoing trade tension. So I'll mention a few key details of the agreement. The first one we have is tariff reduction. So effective May 14, 2025, the United States will lower tariff on China goods from 145% to 30%. You can imagine where it was before, 145 to 30. Okay, why for China, they'll reduce theirs also, the tariff on United States goods from 125% to 10%. I think that's a good one. Then the duration for this agreement is just 90 days. And I mean, both of them are on that note where they want to see how it goes. For 90 days, this reduction would be at play, and they see if truly it would impact on their various economy positively or negatively. So that's one of the headlines. Like I said, I feel like it's very interesting because after all the whole back and forth, the whole increasement from both countries, now they have decided to come to an agreement. I think it's a beautiful word for us to highlight. Then this other one about Combs is to just give more updates about what's going on with Didi. So it was stated here that Mr. Combs' lawyer acknowledged that he was responsible for domestic violence, but denied that he has committed sex trafficking or run a racketeering enterprise. It's just very funny. One way or the other, I feel like this girl was able to prison because of the whole allegations, that are on him. But I just hope that people that are even making all of these allegations, that is taking him to court, they should have evidence to actually back up their claim. Because it's one thing to come out and say, oh, this is what Didi has done to you and all of that, but you don't have anything to, show for it that, okay, as proof. Do you understand? Because right now, his lawyers are saying, oh, domestic violence, so we know saying do am. But anything sex trafficking, we know do am. You can imagine what that is. So I just hope that, they have evidence to back up whatever, so that we can actually just take this person to prison. This is not me saying it like I'm not a fan of Didi or anything, but of course I am not a fan of whoever that is against, whoever that cannot treat his or her fellow human correctly. I mean, of course I will not want to have anything to do with you. And this is a perfect example. And that's why I feel like whoever that, all of the people that have made allegations against him, they should bring out evidence so that we nail this person to the cross. And yes, that's all I have for you on the New York Times.
We should not nail him to the cross. We should just go to...
Well, figure of speech.
The news gives me this feel of... I watched this movie, Suits. I don't know if you know that lore movie. So basically, when lawyers come out to say, oh, he did this crime, but not this one, maybe bring in the lesser crime.
Yes,
it's because they know that all the evidences are against us. Let's just pledge guilty to something lesser so that, the punishment...
You might serve maybe shorter time.
Exactly. Their wisdom, but that gives away the fact that something fishy can be going on. But let me take you through the Punch. The Punch has really interesting stories. Still on the whole jam issue, I was thinking that by now, the whole fuzz and buzz would have died down, but there's still a lot of comments on this whole mass failure. So it says here that JAMB and VCs to review UTME results this Thursday. Rectors and provost principals, examiners to meet JAM chiefs and candidates decry results discrepancies. Federal government voided June 12 to avoid paying Abiola 45 billion naira, says Lamido. 9 banks earn 2.3 trillion naira interest on 61.6 trillion naira loans. Fuel import ban fears as reignite Dangote marketers' role. Political firefight. Saraki panel mobilizes PDP bigwigs against defections. Below that, we see Tinubu and Akpabio. Governors pay Clark final respect. Cash transfer missed millions of needy Nigerians, says World Bank. Obasa APC protesters clash over local government primary outcome. U.S. shares Wigwe's helicopter crash report with federal government. So yes, yesterday too, I think I did see a video that said a particular student, a teenager, had to commit suicide because of this whole jam thing. It was very easy to just come up here and analyze stuff, right, from different angles, not knowing that this particular conversation is still deep-rooted. So this particular teenager committed suicide because this JAMB score is incredibly too low and it can't take me anywhere. And it's a very sad story. I didn't even bother to read the whole details. The fact is that the student actually died. And now he's saying here that JAMB and VCs are coming together to review the whole UTME result. Well, from time memorial, how do they used to put it? It has always been like that, where something will happen to result, and then it will look like some people want to review things. But it almost give people hope, like, oh, maybe there'll be a redo, maybe there'll be an upgrade. But I've seen it over time that sometimes it's really not what happens. It's just for the protocol of it, like, okay, we shall talked about it. So I don't think this is one news that should give students some sort of hope, maybe for them to have it upgraded or looked into. It's just for the books of it. That's how I've seen all this talk. But the headline that really catches my attention is this June 12th story. So it says here, I'm trying to get the full story, but what I read earlier this morning was that the military government at that time was owing Abiola 45, is it billion or trillion naira? I think it's billion at this point. And the reason why the election was annulled was because they didn't want to pay up that money because the country was going to go into some sort of bankruptcy at that point. You know, this new book that came out and I've been having a lot of comments. So Lamido came out to give this particular comment on it. But the landing part that really made me chuckle is how that he's expecting the present administration to pay back the family, you know, of course, since it's late, the whole 45 billion naira. And like all these controversial stories that come up after years. Imagine nobody even knew this side of the story, if at all it's even true. But that's something to consider, that the military government at that time didn't want to pay back some large amount of money, and that's why they had to annul the elections. I'm like, really? Is that really what happens?
But that's like we're watching Nollywood movies when it comes to, well,
at this point, I really want to know what's inside that book.
that
book that's been making people come up with different comments. But that's all I have for the
to also know that there's some people that were alive during that time and are still alive now. Even their stories, I've not been able to put like 5 people together and then get like one story that, okay, this one aligns with what this one I've said. It's just like everybody has different version of their experience with Abiola. But June 12th still stands. Either way, June 12th is June 12th, whether we like it or not. But even the payment, I don't think that asking the present administration to pay up something that the military government, let me just say allegedly, because I cannot confirm it myself, to pay back is almost like we have so much loan already sitting in our bank.
I can imagine the president's face. He's giving a big limo.
This is not in the priority of things I want to pay.
We've been talking about budget, how the World Bank is already saying that our budget is ambitious, and you want to add all of this to it.
Exactly. And I think just yesterday or on Monday, they said that Tinubu paid the former loan, the Sukuk loan, paid that one, and they're like, yay, well, our debt is clear, and then borrowed 300 billion. Another Sukuk bond loan.
You know that cycle of borrowing. I feel
like that's what has been happening, because I
will pay you back so that I can borrow more again.
We already know these things, and I'm not even surprised.
in our own day-to-day life too. Let's not think
yes, I think that it's just a
Nigerian thing.
It's not just Nigerian, because I've known a lot of people who also have credit cards in the West who will say, okay, I've owed this much, I just need to pay this out so that they will allow me take this. So I think it's just a people thing, a mentality thing.
Airtime too. If you're owing MTN a lot of money, I'm sorry, but
it's true.
You can pay back some of it. You
so
can borrow again.
God,
interesting.
Anyways, let me quickly take us through the Guardian newspaper. The headline reads, National Security Summit. Stakeholders reject plan. Flail stalled proposals, high military casualties. UNICEF links 50% of childhood deaths in Nigeria to malnutrition. And on the UTME news, 19-year-old commits suicide in Lagos over low score. Egypt lauds additional for transforming Africa. NIDCOM confirms 20 million Nigerians abroad as migration dialogue emphasizes protection. Nigerians brace for impact as U.S. proposes 5% tax on remittance. Nigeria must work, says Obasanjo, as Lamido seeks closure to June 12 saga. Ganjuge wife orders to face persecutions as court rejects applications over alleged fraud. And another story here reads, Nigeria loses $18 billion to illicit financial flows as debt servicing gulps 70% of revenue. And the final story here reads, reps reject bill proposing rotational presidency. And I think that we have spoken about rotational presidency over and over again and how representation is very important. But I want to quickly read the story here as The Guardian has reported it. The House of Representatives on Tuesday voted against a proposed constitutional amendment seeking to rotate the offices of the president and vice president among Nigeria's 6 geopolitical zones. Sponsored by Deputy Speaker Benjamin Okezie-Kalu, the bill was titled A Bill for an Act to Alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, CAPC 23, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to provide for the principle of rotation of the offices of the President and the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria amongst the 6 geopolitical zones of the country, namely North Central, Northeast, Northwest, Southeast, South-South, and Southwest, and for related matters. During the plenary session presided over by Kalu, House Leader Julius Ihonvere, I don't know how to pronounce this, but Ihonvere, read out the titles of the bills, and members were invited to debate the proposed amendments. The members representing Dala Federal Constituency Kano, Reps Aliyu Madaki, said there was no need for the proposed legislation, saying the Constitution already addresses inclusivity through the federal character principle. Madaki noted that political parties, not the Constitution, should decide on zoning, adding that it was unnecessary to entrench the principle in the nation's supreme law. Another lawmaker, Ali Aiza, representing Balanga constituency, Gombe State, however, countered Madaki's position. The People's Democratic Party lawmaker, observing that constitutionalizing rotational presidency will promote equity and ensure all zones feel included in national leadership. Also speaking against the bill is Rep. Sada Soli, APC Katsina State, described it as a very injurious to unity of the country, a one that embedded rotation in the constitution might elevate ethnic and regional loyalties over national competence. In summary, it's almost like the North, the East are more of the opposing side, that no, we don't want this rotational presidency. But even beyond that, I'm seeing that it's more of a party thing. The PDP are like, yes, we want the rotational presidency. The APC are like, no, we don't want the rotational presidency. We are fine the way we are. But just like you mentioned, that sometimes things are just done for protocol's sake, make it not be like, say, they no talk. They already know that the majority at some point will say, no, they don't want it, because for some reasons it benefits them in one way or the other, either directly or indirectly. And this is just saying that as they have rejected the bill, it's probably going to go back to the drawing board again, or never heard of. It's just going to stay stuck. So not in the nearest future, not in 2,000 years to come, if we're really going to look at the Nigeria we have now, that they might necessarily agree to a rotational presidency, looking that some people already enjoy, some geopolitical zones already enjoy having to go over and over and over again. So saying that I have to sit another 8 years for some random geopolitical zone that they might not respect in that sense will not work. So I just had to read that story because we had always spoken about how people need to be represented in certain geopolitical zones, but Nigeria, as we have it, said no. We have even spoken about the whole 4-year presidency thing to 8-year being reviewed. The Senate also threw that out the window, that no.
When they wanted to increase it to 6 years.
No, we don't want. We don't want them.
You know what I just thought of? Like, Nigerians, we have, when we want to have some things done, we actually have how we want it to be done. So even when you talk about this rotational president thing, I'm not going to lie to you. My whole mind is still focusing on the North, East, and West. Basically, I'm not saying the South.
Not Central,
exactly.
Not East, not...
So eventually, even those that are clamoring for, yes, it should be rotated, it's like it should come to us. We don't care about the maybe lesser, let me use this word lesser for, you know, not to sound discriminatory, but some other political, geopolitical zones are not even considered in this discussion. It's about how it can get to the Easterners or maybe some part of the South. It's funny, I guess.
But Nigeria is Nigeria. But basically, that's all we have on today's newspaper. I hope you learned a thing or two. And this is still an opportunity to follow us on all our social media platforms. We want to hear from you. We'll go on a break right now. When we return, we'll come back with our hot topic for today. Please stay with us. I describe myself as a polyhumanitarian, someone who believes politics should be rooted in love for country and empathy for its people. I'm thrilled to introduce to you Politics Uncensored, a show dedicated to tackling the political challenges that matter most to Nigerians. This is more than just a show. It's a space for honest, unfiltered conversations about the issues that shape our nation. From policy reforms to elections, leadership tussles to governance at all levels, and the overall political landscape in Nigeria. We will dive deep into how politics is impacting our everyday lives. So join me on this journey as we challenge the status quo, spark dialogue, and work together to build a brighter future for Nigeria. Let's make our voices heard and drive the change we deserve. Welcome back to the show. As mentioned earlier, today we're discussing and asking, should religious centers be prohibited from handling childbirth deliveries? The question of whether religious centers should be prohibited from handling childbirth deliveries is complex and multifaceted. Here are some perspectives to consider. We have medical safety. Religious centers may not have the necessary medical equipment, trained staff, or facilities to handle childbirth deliveries safely. In many cases, complications can arise during delivery, and having access to proper medical care is crucial to ensuring the health and well-being of both mother and child. Religious centers also may not be subject to the same regulatory oversight as medical facilities, which can lead to inconsistent standards of care and potential risk for patients. In some communities, religious centers may be the only accessible option for healthcare, particularly for marginalized or undeserved populations. Prohibiting them from handling childbirth deliveries could exacerbate existing healthcare disparities. For some communities, religious centers play a significant role in spiritual and cultural practices surrounding childbirth. Prohibiting them from handling deliveries could be seen as dismissive of these cultural practices and may lead to decreased access to care. Instead of prohibition, it might be more effective to provide training and resources to religious centers to improve their capacity to handle childbirth deliveries safely. This could involve collaboration between medical professionals and religious leaders to develop culturally sensitive and safe care practices. Ultimately, the decision of whether religious centers should handle childbirth deliveries should be based on a careful consideration of the specific context, cultural practices, and medical needs of the community. A balanced approach that prioritizes both safety and cultural sensitivity is likely the most effective way forward. The gynecologists are advocating for stricter regulations and oversight to ensure that childbirth deliveries are handled in properly equipped and staffed medical facilities. And for sure this morning, my ladies will do justice to this conversation with me. I'm going to be starting off with Oluchi. She's laughing like I don't born before. Actually,
that's right. We're actually right now.
But this conversation is a very common thing in Nigeria, where culture is one of the most huge context to anything.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you talk about childbirth, when you talk about health, you talk about culture has to play a part. When you talk about equity, culture has to play a part. And then you also see that there's also the spiritual aspect where if you are sick, they say, I'm not going to go to the hospital. My Jesus will heal me. And this is not to even shade some of the people from the chosen movement. When you say that, okay, we probably need to see the doctor. They're like, I am a chosen. And that's why I don't need to go to the hospital. So it's almost like there's the spiritual part of this and there's the cultural part of it, being the deciding factor for whether or not some of these things would work. So now bringing it to childbirth, I would put a very realistic example. Some people in the white garment church believe that you need to be in the, maybe if they check spiritually, they will now think that you need to be under the abode or under the spiritual covering of the Almighty for a few days. No, God's beauty, don't laugh. I'm talking realistically here.
Okay.
Under the umbrella of the Almighty, because there's been some spiritual visions that has been seen about why the devil wants to stop you from bringing your glory child to the world and all of that. And as I said, this is not a shade, but we have to discuss it in very practical terms. Now, these people sometimes either end up dying because this could not work and they see that's the will of God. Sometimes there's safe delivery in that sense where they're able to handle the childbirth process of that person. But it brings me to ask, do you think, just like we're asking the question, do you think that religious centers should be prohibited from handling childbirth delivery services?
Ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to start from the beginning of this, your introduction, when you were mentioning that culture has become a very major stronghold contextually now to many things that we discuss in our society. And it has made me realize that maybe at this point that we're in, we have so much fought culture. At this point, maybe we should start thinking of how to collaborate. Because the more we keep fighting and saying, no, culture this, culture that, the more we're not making headways. And the more people who are religiously bound by that culture will keep proving to you that we will still hold on to this culture. So sometimes in my head, I'm like, okay, can there be some sort of collaboration with modernization and, you know, some people's cultural beliefs? Because I've told you too many times on this table that even those who are very intellectually sound, those that have masters and PhD, those that you expect have gone to the four walls of the classroom in that sense, there are still some certain cultural stereotypes that hold them back. And sometimes in conversing with them, you're like, huh? This same Dr. Philemon, we are still talking like this. So we can't take away culture necessarily. So at this point, not just for this conversation, but for a more generalistic approach to things, if we can start seeing a way to collaborate, maybe we'll come to collaboration later, we will be able to balance things a lot. So back to the conversation itself, you know, I would say that in our society, once we see an exemption, what they call that thing, we make it a rule and a law. So the fact that one person survived, one person had... I've heard a story in secondary school where someone said that, you know, a woman gave birth when she was in the toilet. Some people have painted the most simplest scenario to giving birth. They'll tell you, I was just even going to church, or maybe I was coming back from church, then the women leader, they were the ones that helped me to put to bed, and that's why you are here. In fact, that's why your name is Samson. You're a chosen child. Do you understand? Things like that. So we've seen exemptions that have made people now make this a rule. And I will not totally really discard it. Because the truth is, if you're going to look at some communities, these religious centers are like their only hope when it comes to the best of safe deliveries. You might say, oh, local healthcare workers or, you know, primary healthcare centers, are they not available? Sometimes if we talk about those ones, we'll see that it becomes a little bit difficult. So sometimes as if these religious centers are even the saving grace of some people that their parents sent them out of the home because they got pregnant out of wedlock. And the church is like, don't worry, come and stay with us. There's one woman in the church that takes care of them. And during delivery, they give birth and their children are okay. Those are exemptions. So I can't necessarily, I'm actually in a fix with this conversation. Even though there are clear consequences to why we must not necessarily make this a rule, but I cannot, just come out here to say that, no, it should be banned, because what you are banning has saved so many people's lives. So many people that didn't have, that money. I don't know how much it is to give birth or to enroll for some of this maternity or whatever. But some people that cannot afford it. Just one woman that works in this primary health care center, that's probably in the choir, that knows you. You were in church one day praying, and that's how the child was brought into the life. So eventually, maybe if we can find a way to put a balance to how people's life can now even be cared for the more, then we can see that maybe it's not such a bad idea. So that's how I would just start the conversation.
Okay, God's beauty. Tell us, because you were laughing hysterically when I was giving my example. So what's your view?
I think Oluchi has spoken well, but I beg to differ on some of the things that she has said. First of all, I feel like Christian, whatever it is, I feel like they are not medical sectors or anything relating to, medicine or anything medical, right? So I don't see a reason, health rather, so I don't see a reason why they should be allowed to carry out certain kind of things. So yes, it should be prohibited. But of course, they should have exceptions. For every law, there are exceptions. Now, there should be exceptions in the sense that if certain persons they are medically fit to be able to carry out such operations or such surgery, fine and good, right? But in situations where there's nobody there that can actually take care of it, there's no midwife, then the medical tools to carry out those kind of operations are not there. Then please, why are we allowing such a thing happen? So you made mention of, in rural areas or communities where they're not privileged of, going to the hospital and all of that, and churches like their saving grace. Then they should not be, that's where the exception should even come in. So such churches should have, some medical people or some personnel or midwives, as we call it, right? So they should be there to take care of certain things like that. So because we've had examples or we've had stories, I've also heard stories. Just as you've heard stories about a woman giving birth in the toilet, I've heard about someone going to the market very close to my environment in Ajibile, and she gave birth there, and many women had to cover her, and, all of that. Yes, it happens. Do you understand? But again, I don't see a need for, allowing church now carry out what is supposed to be left for the health sector to now carry it out, and you now say, oh, let's allow them because of certain examples that we've heard. Mm-hmm. I don't see how that's working. Do you understand? So we should allow medical people do their thing. That's why they are there. The health people, let them do their thing. Then we should allow church people do their thing. But of course, there should be exceptions, and that's why I stated that there should probably be proper training for each of these churches that feel like, oh, they want to carry out, you gave the story of, someone that was kicked out from the house because of, early pregnancy and all of that, and is taken to the church. Such a church that wants to ensure that this person is taken care of. They will also ensure that there are people that can actually take care of her when it's time for her to give birth. They will ensure that they have the right facilities, because most of the time they don't have the right facilities. It's time for us to take out some of those spiritual stories that we keep hearing about, because of the someone in your village that is pursuing you, so because of that you have to stay under the umbrella of Jesus Christ. Trust me, Jesus is everywhere. God is everywhere. So even if you take that part, all you need is literally your Bible. Take that person to the hospital and pray that prayer. God will still answer. You really don't need to be at the church for whatever person to actually cover you up. No. So yes, that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
On this one.
So I think one thing that is common that both of you have mentioned is the need for collaboration and the fact that this thing cannot be completely eradicated, especially in marginalized and rural areas where it might be just one primary health center in the entire community, and there are quite a number of sexual interaction that can happen in those communities. So first, it might even become too full for people to even access that. There might be like 10, 15 childbirths that has to be done in a day, where they just feel like just going there self. Some people have never even been to the hospital before, so they don't even know the process of giving birth to a child in that sense. So we also have where the doctrine plays a part, where in the church or in the mosque they're telling you that, you know what, there's nowhere, just like you said, there's nowhere God cannot be. And some people might even decide that they want to give birth at home. Right? So it's just not just the religious center, it's the fact that people can give birth at home. But I really want to hear...
There some modern people do what they call this water delivery.
Yes. Let me hold your thoughts like that. Okay. Anyways, let's go on a quick break, and when we return, yes, we'll release Oluchi's thoughts today to the world. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the show. So before I release Oluchi's thoughts on this topic, I want her to sort of answer the collaboration part while you're also giving your point. How can we drive community engagement and education when it comes to these maternal and infant childbirth issues? Because obviously it's existing, whether we like it or not. As I mentioned, that rural areas still face a lot of issues with primary health, access to primary health centers. So how can we drive community engagement and education in that sense about maternal health and, infant health?
Yeah, so before I get to that answer, sorry that I deviated a lot. There was this part Godwiti mentioned where, I've forgotten how she put it, but I just realized myself now that some of these church midwives, in quotes, that help people give birth, many of them are not trained. They are just experienced. They have just done it a couple of times and they know that this one should not really go wrong. And even though community is doing like this, some people's life have been saved through that, right? But I'm just going to put that by the side. Now, talking about collaboration, I've heard many times that for you to get to people in some of these communities, you have to get to them through people that they naturally defer to. And that will be their religious leaders. Pastors, imams, spiritual leaders. To some people are like, this is the person over my life. So many times, even if you come as a corporate guy with your apron and your first aid box and say, oh, this community want to tell you about safe delivery and I beg God, this will they won't collect our money and they are off. But many times, if you can work with people that they listen to, that these people are people that they hold in high esteem, you realize that it is easier for you to penetrate this environment and even pass your information a lot more quicker. Do you understand? In fact, that's how some evangelism in those days we heard happened. Yeah. So collaboration, like I meant, that's why I started my conversation with saying collaboration. It's easy to say eradicate. But at this point, this is what I would suggest. People that are already, in the modern world, that know how childbearing, the preventive measures and everything that should be done, medically speaking, should now start looking out for those supposed midwives in these churches that have helped in making some people deliver well and train them. At this point, there are some women that, because they've just had a number of children and they've helped a number of people give birth, they have an idea. They didn't go to any nursing school. So if you come to an environment like that, look out for those women. Don't say, no, we want to ban this, the government wants to ban this. You will really not get to these people as much as you want to. But if you want to achieve 100%, result, you fish out those people, you train them, you take them to schools. So I think nursing school these days have different kinds of programs where sometimes you don't necessarily have to go to the university in that sense. There are different nursing programs, midwifery program, train them with it. So when you take them back to the society, this time around, they're not just coming with vibes and experience to help these people, but with some sort of knowledge. That's what the experienced people can do. And then you use their leaders, their local church pastors, the local mosque pastor to talk to them that, okay, we're going to be having maternity every third market. They don't know how these people call it, but these people will be coming to test us. I mean, In those days, we used to have what they call immunization. I don't know if they even still do it till date.
Most people don't want to take polio vaccines anymore.
But, I mean, growing up, I think I still used to have some of those markers in my pinky finger. They will go around. You know, we expected them to come around this particular day. So if we can have this infiltration, firstly, not by forming that I'm the corporate person that knows what WHO is saying, I know what the statistics are saying, you will not get to these people. They will use their stubborn head to tell you that I don't care. My God has been saving Mama Njideka. He will save me as well. So the best thing to do is, okay, I know you defer to Pastor Emmanuel. Pastor Emmanuel, we want to do this for the community. Can you help us pass this across to them? Pastor Emmanuel will say, oh, but we have people that are doing this. Okay, bring those people. Let us train them so that together we can help save more lives. Because at the end of the day, it's about saving lives. It's about ensuring that people have safe delivery. That's the end goal. So if we can find collaboration to make that happen, more lives will be saved, more future
So would you apply
leaders.
the same example to cesarean deliveries
Now,
in that sense? Even after training, knowing fully well that there can be loss of blood, there can be maybe high BP while that is happening, there can be the need for you to put an oxygen mask on the child. So putting an oxygen mask in a religious center is like setting up $1 million.
Now, when I was even talking about this training, not necessarily in a religious center. Now, you know, there's the way churches have grown these days that they do not just have the church itself where people come to worship. They also have places they call clinics in the church.
Okay.
There are some church people now that are also extending to have schools, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like they do this thing on Sundays. It's just because, oh, it's our church that owns this hospital, that owns this school. So I'm not necessarily saying in the church. Let the church have its responsibility for spiritual growth. But an extension for community service could be having somewhere that they own, that is a clinic, where they can have these people that they've trained. And also, like I've mentioned, what I gave was just a first step recommendation. That can't be the only thing that the modern people can offer to these societies. Like we have NGOs, foundations these days that are infiltrating communities to help them become better. So after this first step recommendation, the next thing will be the ones that have to do with the critical things, like you mentioned, CS, oxygen masks, you know, different kind of things that are more critical. That's where this equipment will be needed in the hospitals. And many times, sometimes I'm saying this, I'm even thinking of what has plagued us in our society today, where the so-called medical experts that we expect are the ones leaving the country. So in my mind, I'm thinking we should have more medical experts begin to stay in rural areas to offer their expert care. But where are they? They are going to Swahili or the next available country to get more dollars. So that already is a bit of an issue, but let's work with the ones that are even here. If we can have more of them deployed to these communities to render their more professional help alongside those other more available helps that they've trained, we're a step closer.
Maybe with a better pay. Because you want to say something?
That's where the government will come in.
Exactly, because I don't even know why we are having this conversation. We've not fought the government yet. Do you understand? Because
it's not about fighting the government.
It is letting them know what they are supposed to do.
But then that is not a fight. That is
I don't know. If they see it as fight, you know how it is.
We have not fought the government.
Okay, oh yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, say the government should take this recommendation.
Yes, they need to, because
how royal God's beauty.
Oh my Lord. But to be honest, right, when earlier when I was making mention of the whole rural area marginalized community, then it just struck me that okay, we are even talking about the fact that we don't have medical personnel, we don't have hospitals in these areas, and the individuals they have to call the churches to help them and all. It's not supposed to be so. It just also means we are now taking out even what exactly the church is supposed to be doing for us. Do you understand? And now we are adding more responsibility to the church. That's what it means. Because tell me why we have a government that they don't understand that in rural areas there are supposed to be hospitals that would check for the needs of the individuals there. It is wrong. We cannot keep saying, I hear you when you said that, people that, the medical personnel in that sense, why they are not going to the rural areas. I'm sorry, but it's not their job 100%. If you are in a country that is not working and you're not earning enough, how do you want to take care of other persons? Why will you not go to a country that is working? That's the problem. Until we are able to start sorting out certain of these issues, I'm sorry, but you cannot really blame any individual. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then, honestly speaking, I just want to throw more light on what she said about Oluchi, rather. On what you said about reaching out to the pastors. Heavy on that, because then, until you are able to explain to the pastors that it is important for these people to go to the hospital, trust me, they will tell their members that they need to be in church because one God needs to take care of them and they don't need the hospital. So until we start reaching out to these persons to change their mindset, many of these things will not change. Yes, that's my 2 cents. I'm going to refer to like that.
She's like, dropped my...
No, because...
Okay, so we have highlighted the fact that problems will still persist, right? And mitigating the risk of these things happening is also very important. And we're talking about collaboration, them training, the government coming in, this and that. In the case that this doesn't happen, how else can we manage childbirth delivery services?
I don't think you want to know what happens in case this doesn't happen.
No, we won't.
This is almost like you're handicapped. In case both options don't work, people should not be giving birth in their house. Because what else do you want to do? I will quickly
cite a story about somebody who gave birth in the house, and this was even in our compound.
Okay.
So she went for the whole maternal care and all of this stuff. Then she was, I think, about 10 centimeters from the hospital when she said, okay, she wants to quickly rush home because the toilet was badly maintained. So she was like, let me rush home, ease myself, pack some things, and just come back to the hospital and sit. And while she was peeing in the toilet, the baby sort of made his way out. Now, my sister is a nurse, right? All of us, the husband screams, help or help, help, because she literally had to hold the child halfway. The child was still there halfway. We rushed down, trying to look at how to ensure that the baby doesn't, because it was still neck deep. So we had to make sure that, because if he stays longer there, the baby might also die. So we had to find a way to get the, told her to push with the pool and everything, you know, everywhere on the floor.
Oh my God.
She was able to give birth to the baby. We're able to quickly... my sister used a blade to even cut the placenta, and then we had already gotten a car to rush her to the hospital. On getting to the hospital said because she did not find a way to manage and bring the baby like that so that they will give birth to her, she might have to pay for the pre-services and some. They just gave like a list of, and to be honest, it was not a private hospital. This was a public hospital.
They said because she did not hold
the baby to rush to the hospital for emergency care, and she gave birth to the baby at home. It means that she had to pay for some things. She got some tear. She has to pay for pre-blood, all of these things. And looking at it, after they took care of her, they had to pay for all of these things. But after they started taking care of her, my sister who was there was like, they didn't use the blood that they collected the money for. They did not do this, they did not do that. So that sort of breached the trust that this lady had with these people. Even breached my sister's trust that, okay, why would a public health system not be able to be accountable or transparent or be more concerned about the health of the mother and the child rather than scolding while the mother gave birth without her consent in that sense. So it's almost like saying that while collaboration is necessary, the hospitals, whether public or private, need to be more sensitive about the fact that sometimes childbirth has no direct, you don't have it all figured out when it comes to childbirth process. So when certain people help out in that sense, it should, if they can even think about driving to the hospital, it should be taken care of immediately. She bled all over the driver's car, and then this person, this was a Uber, because even our car refused to start. You know, when it's almost seeming like everything is working against you, and at that time it was all Jesus, and then she was praying hard till she got to the hospital. And they just told her, first sit down like this because you did not give birth here. So beyond collaboration, people need to be extremely sensitive about how childbirth can be unplanned and how sometimes these people might be the saving grace, as you have mentioned, and at the same time, how they can also train these people that if you see that maybe the baby is neck deep, this is what you should do. If you see that maybe the shoulder is out, if you see that maybe the butt came out first, this is what you should do. And I think that with that line of action, they can meet it. That's why I said that beyond the fact that training can happen, it can also be that they are sensitive, they are mentally aware that anything can happen. If you are coming from a rural area, this lady eventually gives birth and have to drive 2 hours to the public health system. That's not the time to be like, madam, you shouldn't have done this, you move like this.
I have a problem with why we keep having recurring negligence on the part of some of these trained medical experts, especially as regards childbearing. I've not heard much with other kinds of ailments. But childbearing, sometimes I'm like, can't you just show, like pretend to have some sort of empathy when it comes to childbearing? Because over the news. I mean, which time was it when we heard this particular one where a woman lost her life because they could not afford? It's still childbearing. Like, this is bringing a life to the world. This is not trying, and it's 2 lives you are saving here. Other kinds of illnesses is probably liver disease.
And it's just about you.
But this is 2 lives you are saving. Yet we've seen this negligence over and over again. I mean, when you were saying this story, I was literally holding myself here because I'm already thinking of the pain this woman had to experience first of all. Do you know it was very close? The WC is such that if the child had used the head to hit, that child is gone. The fact that that child was saved, the first person you are attending to that come to that hospital is that person. You drop whatever you have done. I saw this kid very casually yesterday that said other hospitals, no, foreign nations, when their doctors have emergency, come and see how these doctors were running. And then he now said in Nigeria, the doctor like, what's doing you exactly? Sit down here. And I'm not going to say this is what happens generally, but if we have some practical examples that shows us that there's a negligence problem, it's to be questioned. I mean, in the schools that I've never been to a medical school, but apart from teaching them the what's it called? The hands-on skill. I think we should start putting some empathy in them because some of these nurses, some of these midwives, some of these doctors, they have the skills, but they don't have the hearts at this point. Because
so
looking
maybe
at
we
this,
should
I'm
start
like,
adding hats to...
maybe they should start putting something there. But I'm sure they do. They actually do. But eventually, it's still humans that you're dealing with.
Exactly. Because
I
wanted to just say that it's a human being
Humans will be humans. Because I'm sure in every curriculum they do.
It's a human being problem.
In less than... you know that when you ask me a question, like in less than 5 minutes, can you tell us how human problem can be solved?
By taking a magic wand and saying, everybody disappear. Because once you have humans, you always deal with problems at different times.
Yeah.
So,
I just hope that we be humans. You know, we are supposed to be empathetic in that sense. We are supposed to care for our, other person, your neighbor, whatever it is really. But just like she said, this is something that we've seen over time. So again, I don't even think it has anything to do with the health, whatever. I think it's the humans themselves, because I'm very sure that there are other people, other doctors or other nurses that are definitely not like this.
Yes, not like that.
So empathy is one thing. Collaboration is another thing. How would I put it?
Shared responsibility.
Shared responsibility is another thing. Government, religious center, humans themselves, the mothers. When you feel like there's something wrong with your child, do well to see how far you can get to a trained public health center.
Can I quickly drop this before I go?
Yes, drop it like a bomb.
It's a cue from what one of our guests in one of our sessions mentioned. And sometimes childbearing, right, giving birth is not a one-day thing. You don't conceive, and it's that day you're giving birth that you're thinking. It's a 9-month thing, meaning that there's a lot of planning that goes into it. Let's not take away the fact that sometimes the reason why some people are handicapped during that eventual date of delivery is because of their poor planning, right? So maybe this is also like something people should have in mind. But of course, you cannot take away the fact that people that get pregnant, out of wedlock, people that get pregnant in marginalized communities,
there's so many
people that just have different babies. Yes. Exactly. But let's imagine those parts don't exist and talk about those ones that have some bit of information and education. Some necessary planning are needed. I'm thinking of this story again. Why did that woman go home when she knew that she was like...
She had been battling infection because she has been... All the time she went to the maternity care. When she uses the toilet, after a while, she's having rash. Because that was the explanation. She was having rash, itchy, this thing, and they said it wasn't even good for the health of the baby. So she was always getting antibiotics. So at that point, and that was in a hospital.
Imagine
so
at
that point, she just felt like...
They don't do this dilation thing, and how they used to do it. So they must have checked that she's 10 centimeters.
10 centimeters. So they were supposed to make sure that she doesn't go.
Leave.
But she mentioned to them, and that was where we were able to sort of fight the you will not pay this thing battle, because she was like, I told you that I want to get home to ensure that I feel like pooing, I feel like doing this, so I have to get home. And they're like, go, but come back quickly. And then that going quickly, coming back quickly led to her giving birth to the child. But basically, this is how we wrap up the show today. I hope you learned a thing or two from this conversation, and maybe we can now be sensitive towards childbirth and maternity, maternal health in that sense. So thank you, God's Beauty. Thank you,
Thank you
Oluchi,
so much.
for always
Thank you,
lending
future
your
mothers.
voice. And future mothers, yes, and being a part of the change the world needs, because this is why we are here. This is what we're talking about, recommendations. And well, to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us on this important decision and giving your 2 cents. Your 2 cents is very much appreciated and well received from us. Do ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV and follow us on all our social media platforms. We'll see you again with another amazing topic. Do well to have a good day. Bye-bye.
Hello, you. Yes, you. This is Usayome Sale from Ways Primetime. Now, we appreciate your continued support for watching our content, following us across all our social media. But we've noticed, for those of you watching us on YouTube, 88.5% of you who watch our content aren't subscribed to our channel. Why? Now, if you are enjoying our content, you enjoy our shows, and you want to stay updated on all things Ways, it's time to hit that subscribe button below. Now, subscribing isn't just for you. It's for the growth of our channel. It helps us get bigger and better. With your support, we can continue to bring even more intriguing and exciting content. How about you subscribing right now and being a part of our community?